Welcome back to Tools and Track. It's not every day we start our episode at the side of Loch Lomond. Well, the Locost needs stuff bought for it, and being the used parts that they are, that takes you to all manner of corners of Scotland, and today it's here. But what are the parts, I hear you ask? We got some wheels. So we now have wheels and tyres. These are 14x6 steels that come off of some Volkswagen of some vintage, which I don't really care about because this isn't one. So what we've got here is the wheels that I'm going to IVA and are going to be backup wheels for doing things like auto testing with, mainly because they're skinny profile, they'll let the car move around easy, and they're going to be kind of small and durable and light enough for me to make some maybe mistakes on and just enjoy on the track. Also, being 14x6, they are running on, bear with me, 175/65/14 profile tyres, which is pretty common and pretty easily supported for a nicer compound when it will inevitably come time to have proper tyres on these and not 14-year-olds. Well, what are these? GT3, oh, they're Goodyears. I'll take it back. It's not often you win that. Anyway, the important point here is these were like 30 quid, which is not a bank breaker. But the main reason I wanted 14s on here now is because we're on to the next stage of silly little jobs that we need to tick off the list. Mudguards. Okay, I've whipped the wheel back off for now, because what we need to do here is think how I'm going to make a wheel arch fitting. Now, the problem I'm going to have here is the obvious structural point to mount a wheel arch to would be the wishbone, because it's nice and it's strong, except it won't turn when the wheel turns. This is going to have to be a bit more creative. I need to mount all of this structure on the upright, this bit of hub that rotates. Now, that's fine, there's lots of points and pickups, but I'm going to have to go and read the IVA manual because my most obvious pickup would be the bolt for the brake, but I don't think the bolt for the brake's a good idea. If something was to knock the arch and cause it to loosen off, I'm then at the risk of losing brakes. It would be a really simple idea to use it, but it might not be the best one. However, the majority of the structure is a really obvious one. The biggest bolt that I can mount all of this assembly to is to make a plate and washer assembly that sits underneath the lower ball joint mount. So that's exactly where we're going to start with. And I think the first thing I'm going to use is angle iron. A bit like this. So this is 80mm in length, and I'm going to just put a big hole in the middle here and mount it onto there. I think I'm going to have to put a couple of bits of angle on this, just so it fits the profile of the inner end of the hub. However, realisation has swept over me. I thought I was being really canny with doing that, but I'm not. If I make the rest of all of this arch assembly come off of here, the idea would be to use this rib for structure. However, if it's on there, it actually follows the ball joint's trajectory, which is coming up this way, not straight up and down. That's not the end of the world. We just need to make sure that we dial that out on this bracket before we go any further. I think I'll put the wheel back on for this, and we'll put a bit more of a kink in this so that it goes completely up and doony way. The next easy one, the two plates that need to go on the covery thing. Names escaped me. It's been a long day. IVA manual again. So I was a bit concerned about using the actual brake caliper mounting points to use for mounting the wheel guards, so I just want to have a wee look at the manual and just see exactly what the criteria is that we need to be hitting here. Section 37, wheel guards. Now, Looking at it, there doesn't seem to be a lot of stipulation here on exactly what can be used to mount the actual wheel guard itself. I mean, that's handy, but I would have thought the idea would have been a bit more kind of rigid on where you can mount these guys. Still, nonetheless, what the criteria is stipulating is how much of the tyre needs to be covered. Now that's an interesting point, because up until now, I haven't actually really considered that. I've just done what looks right. So, scrolling down to the wee diagram, because it's going to be the easiest thing to use to demonstrate this, despite the fact it's been done in Microsoft Paint, what we need to do is make sure the front part of the wheel guard has at least 30 degrees beyond the top dead centre covering the tyre. The rear, similarly, must have at least 50 degrees. Now, given that the whole guard covers about 108 degrees, I think we're at least hitting one of these criteria. I would like to think that we've hit two, but I'll double check this when we get back to the unit. The only other stipulation is the rear of the guard cannot end any more than 150 millimeters above the centre line of the wheel. Now, given that ours is almost curving down and touching the ground, again, not a problem, but something to bear in mind. If you can keep it to the 90 degree marker, you're going to be fine. So that's good to know. We'll just do a wee double check when we get back to the unit, but I still need to work out how I'm mounting these things properly. It's time for deliveries. So what is this? Well, this is going to be the guts of what's going to actually make up this mudguard cycle wing arch support nonsense. I'll get the name of this right by the end of this episode. And what we bought is 8mm thick steel bar. Now, the reason I went with 8mm thick, this is what I normally use to make exhaust hanger brackets. Now, to me, that means that it's tough enough to hold an exhaust up, therefore it should also be tough enough to hold a cycle wing, but it's also small enough that I can actually heat it, ply it, bend it, and move it around. So it's the best sort of compromise width. I could have went a bit thicker and, over-engineered this, but what I've been trying to do from the start is not do that. I keep reminding myself, all this has to do is hold a wing. Granted, up to 100 mile an hour worth of wind will act on it, but it's not a lot of weight. And as you probably gathered, I have got a really bad habit over engineering things. This doesn't need to be one of them. I also could have under-engineered this and went with 6mm and added some gussets, but I thought that's probably going to look pretty shit, to be quite honest, having loads of bit of gusset on what is basically an exposed part of the car. So this is what I've chose. Whether or not it's going to be right, remains to be seen, but we'll give it a go in the first instance. If it doesn't work, we can always just redo it. It's not exactly a critical part of the chassis. If this takes a couple of takes, it's not the end of the world. These guys are going to be perfect. So that is well beyond the 15, that's about 30 degrees of coverage in the front. That's 90 in the back, and it's well within 150mm from the centre line, so that's fine. I've also stuffed a couple of welding gloves under there just to give it a gap, so I can work out the sizes on the back. You can probably see how easy this will be once the wing's in place. So we're going to take our first bar up from here, bend it over to here, form it around there, and then match the plate in there. The one in the back is going to do more or less the same. I'm going to take it up, kink it out to here, and then again, forming around the cycle wing, and it'll hit there. That is going to be the last of the easy bits, because what I'm probably going to have to do after that is find some way to stop the whole assembly moving like this, because that's the only point of fix I've got on it. And if the whole thing moves, it's quite easy for that to back off. Well, it's not going to be easy. At the end of the day, it's a castellated nut, but it's a force that could cause, slackening of that bolt. So I want to lock that off as much as possible. It's going to be quite easy to do, in theory, by simply introducing a third point of contact, namely this guy. That is the old ABS sensor pickup. Now, we're not running ABS, so if I was to put a wee plate that comes down, possibly off of this spar here, and picks up in that, it'll just add an extra bit of rigidity. The only problem I'm going to have with that is there's a sheared bolt in there already. That was mighty impressive. Of course, we now need to do the other side, which is somewhat a work in progress. Right, let's unstump this. Actually, wait, before I unstump this, there is a task I should really do so I can actually finish something today, and that's this. Remove, please. This is going to be a challenge, I think, because there's not a lot there to actually remove. Do we just drill it out? What do you think? Doesn't necessarily need to be the same bore that the bolt for the ABS bracket was. It just needs to be a hole for the new bracket. Or we could use the ABS sensor hole. Right, well you can see why I never did this in the first place, because there's still chunks of that left in there. I mean, there's literally nothing left of the bolt, but it's just fighting me. However, this chapped out okay in the end. So I'm left with a couple of choices. We can retap that and put a bolt in there, or get the welder out again. Well, we won't be having ABS as a retrofit, but we will have a big M8 bolt to hold my cycle brackets. That's going to need a wheel bearing. Well, easy job at the moment, but must remember wheel bearing. Right, how do we finish this? Now that the bracket's actually in place, the solution is pretty damn simple. After all, a little angle bracket here that contacts there, and maybe has a wee spar that runs up and supports that. Pretty much all we're going to need, isn't it? So let's do that. Welcome to the these strange noises, they follow me in here. Wheel arches complete, and I finally got the name right. So, as you can see, nice simple solution, still looks pretty good, and it's most likely going to pass an IVA as far as I can make out. So, that is the end of the task for today. In the next episodes, we are probably going to do other things. It's going to be quite electrifying, that's all I'm going to say for now. If you appreciate the fact you've not seen an ad for this entire episode, you're welcome. That is just because of patreon.com/toolsandtrack. So if you want to show your appreciation a bit, jump over there and help a brother out. If not, that's cool. If you can still do like, subscribe, bell, all that nonsense that everyone on YouTube tells you to do, that would also be awesome. Until next week, guys, drive safe. And a really exposed and obvious part of what the, open car is. Fuck me.